Namaskar. Dear learners, the objectives of this unit are to provide you information on India's monumental heritage and make you aware of the tourism potential of this rich cultural wealth that India is endowed with. India is truly a land of monuments. In whatever part of the country one moves, one finds numerous structures of temples, mosques, canopies and secular structures like tanks, stepwells, bridges scattered all over the region. This is an enormous wealth and undoubtedly contains great tourism potential. Similarly, these cultural wealth and other objects of culture such as coins, paintings, textiles, etc. make India a real tourist attraction. Some part of this treasure has been successfully housed and displayed in the museums that today dot the urban townscape of the country. Now let us learn about the monuments of the ancient period. The monumental heritage of India dates back to the days of Harappan city culture 3500 BC to 1500 BC. Since then, there has been an unbroken sequence of the architectural works belonging to different cultural strata, the details of which we will learn in this session. Harappan sites. The information about Harappan civilization comes from the reports of excavations at places like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. The excavations at Harappa began in 1921. Since then, many Harappan settlements have been located and excavated. By now, more than 97% settlements have not been excavated. According to one estimate, only 3% of the reported Harappan settlements have been excavated. Here we try to examine the details of the location and characteristics of some important sites that have been excavated. Harappa, to start with, Harappa was the first site to be excavated in 1920s. It is located on the banks of the Ravi in western Punjab. In terms of its size and the variety of objects discovered, it ranks as the premier city of the Harappan civilization. The ruins of the city cover a circuit of about 3 miles. Mohenjo-daro is another city. Mohenjo-daro is located in the Larkana district of Sindh, which is now in Pakistan, on the bank of the river Indus, and is the largest site of the Harappan civilization. Most of the information regarding the town planning, housing, about seals of this civilization comes from Mohenjo-daro. Excavations begun at this site in 1912 show that people lived here for a very long time and went on building and rebuilding houses at the same location. As a result of this, height of the remains of the building and the debris is about 20 meters. Kalibangan is another site. The settlement of Kalibangan is located in Rajasthan along the dried up bed of the river Ghaggar. Kalibangan was excavated in the 1960s under the guidance of B.K. Thapar. This place has yielded evidence for the existence of pre-Harappan and Harappan habitations. Lothal is another site that we have in India, located in the flats of Gulf of Cambay in Gujarat. This place seems to have been an outpost for sea trade, with contemporary West Asian societies. Now, the town planning of this civilization. Harappan towns had a remarkable unity of conception. This was suggested by the division of each town into two parts. In one part was a raised citadel where the rulers were staying. In the other part of the town lived the ruled and the poor. This unity of planning would also mean that if you were walking on the streets of Harappa, the houses, the temples, the granaries and the streets themselves will be almost identical to those of Mohenjo-daro or any other Harappan town for that matter. The settlements of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro and Kalibangan show certain uniformities in their planning. These cities were divided into a citadel built on a high podium of mud brick. The lower city contained residential areas. In Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, the citadel was surrounded by a brick wall. At Kalibangan, both the citadel and the lower city were surrounded by a wall. Streets ran from north to south in the lower city and cut at right angles. Obviously, this kind of alignment of streets and houses represents conscious town planning. In Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, baked bricks were used for buildings. In Kalibangan, mud bricks were used. In settlements like Koddaji and Amari in Sindh, there was no fortification of the city. The site of Lothal in Gujarat also shows a very different layout. It was a rectangular settlement surrounded by a brick wall. It did not have any internal division into citadel and lower city. Along the eastern side of the town was found a brick basin which has been identified as a dockyard by its excavator. In Harappa, Mohenjo-daro and Kalibangan, the citadel areas contained monumental structures which must have had special functions. This is clear from the fact that they stood on a high mud brick platform. Among these structures is famous Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. This brick-built structure measures 12 meter by 7 meter and is about 3 meters deep. It is approached at either end of flights of steps. The bed of the bath was made watertight by the use of bitumen. Water was supplied by a large well in an adjacent room. There was corbelled drain for disgorging water too. The bath was surrounded by porticos and sets of rooms. Scholars generally believe that the place was used for ritual bathing of kings or priests. Stupas is another form of building that we find in India. The practice of preserving the remains of an important personality below accumulated earth was long in existence. Buddhist art adopted this practice and the structure built over such a site was known as stupa. According to Buddhist sources, the remains of the Buddha's body were divided into 8 parts and placed under these stupas. These, during the time of Ashoka, were dug out and redistributed, which led to the construction of other stupas, the sacred place of Buddhism. The worship of stupas led to their ornamentation and a specific type of architecture developed for their construction. Let us briefly discuss some of the prominent stupas. The first one, Bodh Gaya. It is in Bihar. 15 kilometers from Gaya is the site where Lord Buddha gained knowledge, and it was here that Ashoka got a Bodhi Mand constructed. No trace of the original construction has survived. we have only the remains of the stone pillars constructed during the Sunga period, like the railing pillars found around other stupas, and they too have sculpture, the panels in relief. They illustrate stories from the Buddhist Jataks. Now, another stupa that we have is Sanchi Stupa. It is about 14 kilometers from Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh and is perhaps the most famous stupa site in India. It has 3 stupas, all with gateways around them. But the most famous is the Great Stupa, which was originally made of brick in Ashok's time. During the Sunga period, this was nearly doubled in circumference. The bricks of Ashokan times were replaced by stones, and a Vedika was also constructed around it. 4 gates, one in each direction, were added to beautify it. From the southern gate, we get an inscription from its architrave which tells us that it was donated by King Satyakarni, and the incision work was done by those craftsmen who worked on ivory. The northern gate and the panels depict stories from the Jataks. The reliefs of Sanchi display, among other representations, the following quite prominently. 1. The 4 great events of the Buddha's life, that is birth, attainment of knowledge, Dharam Chakra Parivartan and Mahaparinirvan. 2. Representations of birds and animals like lion, elephant, camel, etc. are abundant. Some of the animals are shown with riders in heavy coats and boots. 3. Lotus and wishing vines have been prominently and beautifully carved out as ornamentation. And 4. Unique representation of forest animals in a manner which looks as if the whole animal world turned out to worship Buddha. Another stupa that needs mention is Barhut Stupa. This stupa is located 21 kilometers south of Satna in Madhya Pradesh. Barhut Stupa was initially built by Ashok and was later improvised by the Sung. The main stupa structure no longer exists. The railings of the stupa and its one surviving gate, which is known as Toran, are at the Indian Museum, Kolkata, and other sculptural remains are at other museums like the Allahabad Museum. The important features of this stupa are gateways or torans, which are imitations in stone of wooden gateways, railings spreading out from the gateway. They also are imitation in stone of post and rail fence, but the stone railing of Barhut have on top a heavy stone border or coping. The Barhut stupa railings have numerous images and yakshis. These are the earliest images of the yaksh and yakshis, which became the part of later art. These embody the spirit of nature and serve to remind us of the divinity that underlies all that is around us. The yakshas and yakshis represent the protection of nature and its great fertility, which ensures the continuance of life. There are representations of Buddhist themes like Jatak stories in combination with various natural elements. Buddha has been represented in the form of symbols such as a seat, footprints, the Bodhi tree, the wheel and the stupa. Few other stupas that needs mention are Amravati. It is located 46 kilometers from Guntur, and this stupa was built with white marble. Another stoop that we have that needs mention is Nagarjun Kond. There was stoop excavated at Takshila, which is now in Pakistan. Now let us learn about the rock cut architecture. Now the rock cut architecture was initiated by Ashok in the 3rd century BC, blossomed from 2nd century BC onwards into a powerful and popular architectural mode. This architecture has 3 definite phases, the earliest dating from the 2nd century BC to 2nd century AD, the second from the 5th to 7th century, and the last from the 7th to 10th century. All the phases develop primarily on the Western Ghats, while they occur only secondarily in other parts of the country. The greatest centers of excavations in Western India are Bhaj, Bedsa, Junar and Karle in Pune district, Elephanta and Kanheri near Mumbai, Nasik and Pitalhora, Aurangabad, Ajanta and Alora in Aurangabad district. Ajanta has 30 Buddhist caves in form of chaityas and viharas ranging in date from 2nd century BC to 7th century AD, while Alora has as many as 34 excavations dating from 5th to 8th century, of which the earliest are Buddhist, followed by Brahminical and Jain caves in the chronological order. Temples. Indian temples have symbolized the very ethos of lifestyle of people through the millennia. From the simple beginnings at Sanchi in the 5th century of the Christian era to the great edifices at Kanchi, Tanjavur and Madurai is a story of more than a millennium. The basic parts of the Hindu temple comprises of sanctum, the Garbhagriha, which is literally the womb house, which was a small cubicle with a single entrance and grew into a large chamber in time. The Garbhagriha is made to house the main icon, which is itself the focus of much ritual attention. Another is the entrance to the temple, which may be a portico, is known as Ardh Mandap, a colonnade hall that incorporates space for a large number of worshippers is the assembly hall known as Mandap. Freestanding temples tend to have a mountain-like spire which can take the shape of a curving shikhar in North India and pyramidal tower called Viman in South India. The Vahan, that is the mount or vehicle of the temple's main deity, along with a standard pillar or dhwaj, is placed axially before the sanctum. As temples grew more complex, more surfaces were created for sculpture through additive geometry, that is by adding more and more rhythmically projecting symmetrical walls and niches without breaking away from the fundamental plan of the shrine. The major styles of temple architecture in India, the ancient texts of Indian temple architecture broadly classify them into 3 orders, the Nagar, Dravid and Vesar, which indicate a tendency to highlight typological features of temples and their geographical distribution. Nagar temples are generally identified with the northern temple styles. All of northern India, from the foothills of the Himalayas to the central plateau of the Deccan, is furnished with temples in northern style. The Dravid temples are generally identified with the southern temple styles. The temples in this style followed a more consistent development track and was confined to the most southerly portions of the subcontinent, especially between the Krishna River and Kanyakumari. The term Vesar is not free from vagueness. Some of the texts ascribe the Vesar style to the country between the Vindhyas and River Krishna, but there are texts placing it between the Vindhyas and the Agastya, the location of which is uncertain. There are various sub-styles in each of the above mentioned categories. Let us learn about the features of the Nagar style of temple architecture. Nagar is the style of temple architecture which became popular in northern India. It is common here to build an entire temple on a stone platform with steps leading up to it. It is characterized by its distinctive shikhar, a superstructure or spire above the Garbhagriha. The Nagar style temple in its plan consists of a square Garbhagriha, that is the sanctum. It is preceded by one or more adjoining pillared mandaps, porches or halls which are connected to the sanctum by an open or closed antaral, the vestibule. The entrance doorway of the sanctum is usually richly decorated with figures of river goddesses and bands of floral, figural and geometrical ornamentation. The Pradakshina path and ambulatory is provided around the sanctum. The shikhar is usually curvilinear in outline and smaller rectilinear shikhars frequently top the mandaps as well. The temple is raised on a jagati, the platform with attendant shrines at the corners. If a temple is dedicated to God Shiv, the figure of the bull Nandi, the god's mount, invariably faces the sanctum. And if dedicated to God Vishnu, standards Dwaj Stambh may be set up in front of the temple. The Nagar temples can be classified on the basis of region. Central India, we have the Dashavatar Vishnu temple at Devgarh in Uttar Pradesh, Khajuraho group of temples in Madhya Pradesh. In Western India, Sun Temple, Modhra in Gujarat is a very good example. In Eastern India, the variation can be seen Assam, the Ahom style in and around Guwahati. The example is Kamakhya temple, which is a Shakti Peeth also. In Bengal, between the 9th and 11th centuries in Bengal, including Bangladesh and Bihar, is known as the Pala style. Siddheshwara Mahadev temple at Burdwan in West Bengal is a good example of this style. The local vernacular building traditions of Bengal like Bengali hut or Bangla roof in the Mughal period and later terracotta brick temples were built. Vishnupur, Bankura, Burdwan and Barbhum and are dated mostly to the 17th century. Odisha is another sub-style in the Nagar style, which is also known as the Kalinga style of temple architecture. The main architectural features of Odisha temples are classified in three orders, that is Rekhapada, Pidar and Khakra. Most of the ancient temples are located in ancient Kaling, that is modern Puri district, including Bhubaneswar, Puri and Konark. The temples of Odisha constitute a distinct sub-style within Nagar order. In general, here the shikhar called Deol in Odisha is vertical almost until the top when it suddenly curves sharply inwards. Mandaps in Odisha are called Jagmohans. The ground plan of the main temple is almost always square, which in the upper reaches of its superstructure becomes circular in the crowning. The exterior of the temple is lavishly carved, while the interiors are generally quite bare. Odisha temples usually have outer walls. Sun Temple at Konark, Jagannath Temple at Puri are good examples of this style. In hills, a unique form of architecture developed in the hills of Kumaon, Garhwal, Himachal and Kashmir. Features of the Dravidian style of temple architecture. Unlike the Nagar temple, the Dravid temple is enclosed within a compound wall. The front wall has an entrance gateway in its center, which is known as Gopura or Gopuram. The shape of the main temple tower is known as Viman. The Viman is like a stepped pyramid that rises up geometrically rather than curving shikhar as we have learnt in the North Indian style. In South India, the word shikhar is used only for the crowning element at the top of the temple, which is usually shaped like a small stupika or an octagonal cupola. A large water reservoir or a temple tank enclosed in the complex is general in South Indian temples. Subsidiary shrines are either incorporated within the main temple tower or located as a distinct, separate small shrine besides the main temple. At some of the most sacred temples in South India, the main temple in which the Garbhagriha is situated has in fact one of the smallest towers. This is because it is usually the oldest part of the temple. When the population and the size of the town associated with the temple increased, it would have become necessary to make a new boundary wall around the temple. An example of this is Sri Rangam temple at Tiruchirappalli, which has as many as 7 concentric rectangular enclosure walls, each with gopurams. The outermost is the oldest, while the tower right in the center housing the Garbhagriha is the oldest. Temple architecture under the Pallava dynasty. The monuments at Mahabalipuram, now known as Mamallapuram, includes rock-cut temples, monolithic rath and mandaps, and the shore temple. The other examples of this period are the Kailash Nath temple at Kanchi, the Vaikund Perumal temple at Tirunelveli and Mukteshwar temple. Under the Chola rules, the magnificent Shiv temple of Tanjavur, called the Rajarajeshwar or Brihadeshwara temple, is the largest and tallest of all Indian temples. It is in this temple that one notices for the first time 2 large gopuras with an elaborate sculptural program which was conceived along with the temple. Architecture in the Deccan or Vesar style. The buildings in the Deccan region are hybridized style which contain both elements from Nagar and Dravid architectural styles and is known in some ancient texts as the Vesar style. The Vesar style became popular after the mid-7th century. Under the Chalukyas, the important temples are Ravanpadi cave at Ehole in Karnataka, Ladkhan temple at Ehole in Karnataka, Durga temple at Ehole in Karnataka, temples at Pattadakal in Karnataka. Under the Rashtrakuta dynasty, their greatest achievement in architecture is the Kailash Nath temple at Ellora. The Jain temples at Pattadakal was also built by the Rashtrakutas. Under the Hoysalas, the temple architecture, with the declining Chola and Pandya power, the Hoysalas of Karnataka grew into prominence in South India and became the most important patrons centered at Mysore. The temples at Belur, Helibit and Somnathpuram are their achievements. The most characteristic features of these temples is that they grew extremely complex with so many projecting angles emerging from the previously straightforward square temple, so that the plan of these temples starts looking like a star. As the plan looks like a star, it is known as stellate plan. They are usually made out of soapstone. Vijayanagar was founded in 1336 and it literally means city of victory. Architecturally, Vijayanagar synthesizes the centuries-old Dravid temple architecture with Islamic styles demonstrated by the neighboring sultanates. The Jain temple architectural developments. Jains were prolific temple builders like the Hindus, and their sacred shrines and pilgrimage spots are to be found across the length and breadth of India, except in the hills. The oldest Jain pilgrimage sites are to be found in Bihar. In the Deccan, some of the most architecturally important Jain sites can be found in Ellora and Aihole. In central India, Devgarh, Khajuraho, Chanderi and Gwalior have some excellent examples of Jain temples. Karnataka has a rich heritage of Jain shrines, and at Shravanbelgola, the famous statue of Gomateshwar, the granite statue of Lord Bahubali, which stands 18 meters or 57 feet high. The Jain temples at Mount Abu were constructed by Vimal Shah, and they are the precious heritage of Jain architecture. Notable for a simplistic exterior in contrast with the exuberant marble interiors, their rich sculptural decoration with deep undercutting creates a lace-like appearance. The temple is famous for its unique patterns on every ceiling and the graceful bracket figures along the domed ceilings. The great Jain pilgrimage site in the Shatrunjaya Hills near Palitana in Kathiawar, Gujarat is imposing with scores of temples clustered together. Now let us conclude. The ancient and medieval architectural heritage of India was extremely rich and reflects the patronage of the rulers in creating such marvelous structures. Our duty is to learn about these heritage marvels and protect them as they are our cultural identity. Thank you.